Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. All the characters in this story are over 18 years old. That damn phone again. He's been calling all damn day. I replied with my usual greeting, Sam Brown. Sam, baby, do you think you can get off early and start our weekend? Her voice was like honey, sweet in consistency. What about Angela? I sent her home early. There's no one here. Hurry up. I turned off my computer, forwarded my phone to voicemail, and locked the office behind me. I practically ran to my car. There would be few traffic jams at this time of day, even on a Friday. I would have been at her house in half an hour. The first time I met Christy was when she entered the music class. We both went to junior high school. There was only one empty seat for a blonde, blue-eyed beauty 170 centimeters tall, and it was right next to mine. We exchanged greetings and names before Ms. Kramer began a lecture on the evolution of jazz in early 20th century America. Yes, I remember that moment clearly. That was the day I fell in love with Christy Holman. Christy and I dated throughout our freshman year. I knew she dated other guys from time to time, but I put up with it because, firstly, I had to, and secondly, she was usually free for at least one night every weekend. Spring has come, and I've had a great year for 3 reasons. I played on the university tennis team. It seemed that I would enter the state university. My SAT scores came back, and I hit the 99th percentile. Everything looked good for admission to the college of my choice. There was only one thing that could make this year better, and I planned to complete my personal top 3 on Saturday. I took Christy to the Shampoo movie because everyone said she looked like a younger, fair-haired version of Lee Grant. I stopped kissing Christy long enough to ask her my question. Christy, will you come to the prom with me? Sam, I'm sorry. Jake Harmon already asked, and I said yes. Jake was the best quarterback in our school. I didn't even know they were dating. My ego has fallen into a deep, dark hole. For the next half hour, I held myself in check as I drove her home and walked Christy to her parents' door. She kissed me on the lips and went into the house. The porch light went out. It didn't help when, over Sunday dinner the next day, my mom, in her usual cheerful manner, asked if Christy was glad she was invited to the prom. My younger brother Jeff, Dad and Mom were all watching me with smiles on their faces. I really had a kind, loving family. I grew up in a safe cocoon. I can't tell you how happy she was when she agreed to go to the prom. She was probably happy because she said yes to him. To him? Who is he? Christy is going to prom with Jake Harmon. Let's just say that my parents did everything they could to help me get over this bump in the road. As I said, I grew up in a loving family. I did my best to avoid Christy during the summer between junior and senior grades. But autumn came, school started, and it became harder to avoid it. Christy acted as if nothing had happened. One Friday afternoon, she even cornered me and asked me to take her to a football match. I only agreed because I was going to go anyway. Jeff was the starter. What a twist. So I'm sitting next to Christy and she's calling Jake, and I'm screaming every time Jake passes Jeff. Confused, right? After the game, I did my duty and handed Christy over to Jake as he was leaving the locker room. Jake was actually a great guy. It's not his fault that he dated the girl I loved. When he came out of the locker room, all pumped up with victory, he greeted me with the words, "Your brother played a great game. Thanks to his throws, I look good." He shook my hand and thanked me for taking care of his girl. I did my best to spend as little time with Christy as possible. The school was big, so it was easy to limit yourself to a few conversations a week. Besides, Christy was busy with Jake. That's why what happened in February seems so strange. It was the day after my 18th birthday, and I was hanging out at home studying. I answered the knock on the door and found Christy standing there. "Hi, Sam. Can I come in?" I let her in. "Are your parents at home?" "No, it's not." "Jeff?" "No. What's the matter?" "I brought you a birthday present." Christy took my hand and led me down the stairs to the office. "Happy birthday, Sam." Christy gave me a heartfelt kiss. "Don't pull away. Stay where you are." I watched as Christy closed her eyes and mentally moved somewhere else. Her fingers kept twitching, faster now. Christy looked back at me and smiled. "Thanks, Sam. Happy birthday." I didn't know what to say. Here was the girl of my dreams, giving me what I wanted more than anything in the world. It didn't occur to me until later that day. How did Christy, who turned 18 just a month ago, learn so much about making love? If I thought this was a revival of Christy and Sam, I was wrong. Christy continued to date Jake. We still talked from time to time, and sometimes when we passed by in the hall, Christy would hold Jake's arm. She would smile at me secretly, exchanging non-verbally something that only the two of us knew. We graduated from high school. Christy went to Arizona State University, and I went to Northwestern. Christy changed from a high school quarterback to a college basketball forward, and later to a swimmer who was destined to participate in the Olympic Games. We saw each other in the summer and on any vacation when Christy was at home. That's where our relationship reached its crazy status, which lasted for years. Despite Christy's other relationships at school, here at home we became lovers. It started in the summer after the first year. Christy and I were at the same party. She came up to me and spoke as if we were best friends. I drove her home, and we made love in her parents' mother-in-law's vacant apartment above the garage. Christy seemed pleased with my performance. I spent my first year at Northwestern University trying to get a few female students to like me. Why, Sam, have you improved your game since last time? Now you have the tools and the talent. For the next 3 years, until we graduated from college, we did the same thing. I seriously thought that we would have a chance after graduation. Christy talked about returning to Chicago and finding a job in the city. For this reason, I turned down a great job offer from a company. I want to remain anonymous because I'm so embarrassed that I turned it down, in Palo Alto that did some cutting-edge work on personal computers. Imagine my surprise when Christy called me and told me that she had decided to enroll in graduate school at the University of California. I believe that during Christy's studies at the University of Southern California, she acquired a taste for the beautiful in life. Chatting with the rich, beautiful people of Southern California gave her the opportunity to find out what it was like to spend a day on someone's yacht or take a ride along Rodeo Drive in a Bentley with her friends. After 2 years at the University of California, Christy finally returned home. I was still single, and we started dating again. I wondered again if this could be the one. Could this be what I've been waiting for? My parents and brother told me that I was crazy, and I resented their disbelief. Was I not good enough for her? Is that what they were trying to say? Of course it wasn't, but I was too stupid to realize that they thought Christy wasn't good enough for me. So Christy and I dated for the next 5 months until I was ready to ask a question and give Christy an engagement ring for Christmas. That is, until one evening I returned from a wonderful evening when I listened to Beethoven at the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. Sir George was at the peak of his playing that evening, and I was walking through the air. The Seventh Symphony was spinning in my head, and Christy was walking next to me, holding my hand. Sam, we need to talk. This is our last date. I'm getting married in June. He proposed to me last weekend, and I said yes. He agreed that I could go to the symphony concert with you tonight. So you know. Who is this? His name is Kent Thomas. This is a man I met at work. He owns one of the companies that we supply with materials. And does he know that you and I were dating and sleeping together while you were dating him? Yes, but he knows it's over between us, and he says it doesn't matter as long as I promise to be faithful from now on. Wow, an understanding guy. Yes, he's wonderful. Christy didn't mention, and very rich. And now, finally, it's over. At least, that's what I thought. I dreamed about Christy almost every night for the first year after our last breakup. She was married to Kent Thomas, and I tried to forget it. My friends and family did everything they could to help me overcome this. When kindness didn't work, they teased me. When teasing didn't work, they tried hard love. I was starting to come to my senses until one day she came into my office. Just like it hadn't been more than a year since she'd said goodbye to me. Hi, Christy. What brings you here? Kent is flying to Argentina for a week to fly fishing somewhere on some river there. I'm staying in town and I was wondering if you needed company. What are you talking about? You're married. I hesitated. Are you seeing someone, Sam? No, but that's not the point. I'm not going to stand here and beg, Sam. If you want, here's my address. Come back after 6. Angela, our maid, will be gone. You can go to the garage. Here's the remote. Close the door behind you. I'll be waiting. God help me. I went to her house that night and stayed until 4 in the morning. When the garage door closed and I got out of the car, she opened the door between the garage and the entrance. She took my hand as we walked through the kitchen. She turned off the light and led me to their office. A fire was burning in the fireplace. Christy had prepared a decanter of red wine. Candles were burning on both sides of the fireplace and on the mantelpiece. The fire and candles were the only source of light in the room and in the whole house. I made a note not to let her hear these reminders of her husband's insane wealth as soon as we finish our first lovemaking session. We hugged in front of the fireplace. We talked about nothing about her husband or the women I dated last year. It took me a while to come to my senses. We slept until her alarm went off at 3:45. I got dressed and went home. This went on for 2 years. Kent was leaving town, and Christy called, and I came running. All this time I've been waiting for Christy to come to her senses. How could she stay with him when she obviously loved me more? I know I couldn't compete with his money. Heck, I wasn't even at the same level, but I was earning very well. I could afford vacations, cars, and luxury items. Maybe not a month-long European vacation, or the Mercedes-Benz 450 convertible she drove, or the 4-carat diamonds she wore. But did she really need these things when she could have me? During these 2 years, I saw less and less of my family. My mother and father, my brother and his wife, were embarrassed and disgusted with me. My brother's wife, Rachel, is the most. She had strong feelings about adultery, and I was never invited to their house, although she did not forbid Jeff to be with me. I think she was hoping that he would have an influence on me. I've been waiting for 2 years. Then, I looked up from my desk and saw him standing in front of it. Naturally, I checked his hands for a pistol or some other weapon. Nothing but 2 hands, not even clenched into fists. I had never met him before, but I recognized him from the photographs that decorated the hallway leading to their bedroom. The photos show him and Christy in Venice, Buenos Aires, Paris, and many other exotic places. He was a little shorter than me, but still in great shape for a man in his 50s. Immaculately dressed. His suit probably cost the same as my entire wardrobe. In accordance with the fashion for casual clothes, he did not wear a tie. The collar of his insanely well-pressed shirt was unbuttoned. His clothes, his immaculate haircut, his whole being just pissed me off. "What do you want?" I said it in the most threatening tone I could muster. I was emboldened when I saw that he didn't have a weapon. "May I sit down?" "Go on." "Mr. Brown, I came here to ask how much it would cost me if you stopped seeing my wife." "Mr. Thomas, you don't have that much money." "I have a lot of money." "Mr. Thomas, I've been in love with Christy for 12 years. I should be her husband, not you. You are her husband only because you can buy her what she deserves. Do you really think that a beautiful woman like Christy would marry a man 20 years older than her if he didn't have money? No, I have no doubt that Christy married me because I have money. But that doesn't change the fact that I love her and that we made vows. She says she loves me, and I believe her. And I know it sounds ridiculous to say that she loves me when at the same time, I'm looking at the man who sleeps with her every time I'm out of town. A simple fact, Mr. Brown. Christy married me, not you." His arrogance continued to piss me off, and I exploded. My outburst must have hit Kent Thomas between the eyes and right into his soul. His expression turned sad and his mouth twisted. Finally, he spoke. "Mr. Brown, I love my wife. Yes, she's a flawed person, and yes, you two are making love. But in all other respects, Christy is a wonderful wife. Her only fault is the feelings she has for you. But it's not love. Otherwise, she would have left me and married you when I came face to face with her. I offered Christy her freedom and even handed her a check for $1 million. She didn't take it. That must be bullshit. Christy would never give up $1 million. It would give us everything we need to be together." "Mr. Thomas, I don't believe you. This conversation is over. I would appreciate it if you would leave my office now." Kent Thomas got up from his chair and left without saying a word. Christy hadn't called in a few days, but I didn't expect her to call if her husband was in town watching. I decided to contact my brother and go to the Blackhawks game. We were having a great time until I started talking about Kent Thomas's visit. "You're not going to believe this, Jeff. This man was actually sitting there practically begging me to stop dating Christy. Can you believe that a guy could stoop so low?" My younger brother just stared at me with an expression of surprise on his face. I couldn't stand it. "What? Are you really going to sit here and talk about another man's groveling when it comes to Christy, my brother? A man who spent more than 10 years waiting for her to become his girlfriend or wife, or whoever else. She was my girlfriend and my lover almost all this time. And yet, she dated a quarterback in high school, a college basketball star, and married another man. I'm just glad Rachel has a different definition of commitment. Rachel wouldn't be my wife if she had the same attitude to exclusivity as your girlfriend. From that moment on, everything went downhill. I think I made a derogatory remark about Rachel. It ended when Jeff told me, "Fuck you," and left the bar. I didn't hear from Christy for the next few months. She was in Europe for a while, and then came to their home in Palm Beach. One Saturday, Christy called me at the last minute. "Can you come here tonight? I have a free evening." But the tickets to Palm Beach were booked before 10 o'clock at night, and nothing came of it. It was only 7 months after Kent Thomas visited my office that I was able to see Christy again. We knew that her house was now off limits, so we met at Drake's while she was shopping. It cost me a lot of money, but it was worth it. Nothing seemed to have changed between Christy and me. We made love for 2 hours. For 2 hours, I tried my best to make her forget that she lived in another world. After 2 hours, Christy showered, dressed, and left the room. I've been watching her all this time. I looked up from my desk and saw him standing there. He was a tall man with fair skin. I didn't recognize him, but I recognized the shiny object in his hand. I've never fired a gun, but I understand how they work. It was a stainless steel revolver. He raised the gun and put the muzzle to my forehead. I heard a distinctive click when he pulled the trigger back. When he spoke, it was a slight accent Irish, I think. "You should have taken the money that was offered to you." I was scared. I'm more scared than I've ever been in my life. "Is it too late?" "Oh yes, it's too late. The money you were supposed to receive was given to me." At these words, my intestines almost turned out. "You really are a weakling. I'll do it quickly. This is your last warning. You write, you talk, you meet her again, I come back and shoot you in the head. It's that simple. Oh, if you call the cops and tell them about this visit, you won't like what my partner does to you before blowing your head off. You will beg for the bullet to stop your pain." The guy just turned around and walked out. I did exactly as I was asked. I never spoke to Christy again, except to tell her both times when she called that I was dating another woman and would not see her again. When Christy tried to speak, I told her it would be better if we just didn't even talk to each other. Christy seemed offended that I had closed her door. She obviously didn't know anything about the threats I was receiving from her husband. 3 months later, I was having dinner alone in a small Greek restaurant on Halsted. They went into the restaurant together. Heck, of all the thousands of restaurants in Chicago, and especially this one, this is not a place frequented by a multimillionaire and his trophy wife. What the hell are they doing here? They were sitting where I should have been facing them, just a couple of tables away, close enough to eavesdrop. Christy looked back and saw me. She leaned over and told Kent that she recognized a friend. Would he mind if she came over and said hello? Of course not, dear. Christy got up from her chair and came over to me. "Sam, what a surprise. How are you?" I watched Kent out of the corner of my eye as Christy answered. He watched, smiling. "I'm fine, Christy. And you?" "Better than ever. Are you still dating that lady you told me about?" "My fictional lady, stay alive." I lied. "Yes, I think we're getting married." "That's good, Sam. Are you going to invite your old friend to the wedding?" "No, I don't think so." Christy lowered her voice so Kent wouldn't hear. "God, Sam, do you have to be so damn cold?" Now Kent shook his head, and his smile turned sinister. "Go back to your husband and leave me alone." "Fuck you." Christy turned and walked back to Kent. I put the 20 on the table and left without looking at them. When I got to the door, it dawned on me. Meeting them in that restaurant was not an accident. I was being followed, and he knew where I was going to be. Kent Thomas brought Christy there to gloat. He won and I lost. 2 days later, the same tall Irishman came into my office. All he said was, "Keep up the good work." That's all. My brother and I mended our relationship, but only after I apologized for being such an asshole to Rachel. She didn't deserve my disrespect. She was Jeff's loving wife. They convinced me that I needed professional help. I spent 6 months with a therapist trying to overcome a 12-year longing for a woman who never wanted anything from me but support. It took me these 6 months to figure it out. What makes a woman like Christy attractive? What makes her treat the man she loves like that? Do you think Christy loves you? She told me that she did. She's been telling me this since high school. She was the first woman I ever made love to. We continued to make love until her husband started threatening me. I do not know Christy and I cannot say for sure. The world revolves around her and what she wants, which, in her opinion, she deserves. She wants everything related to wealth. Her husband gave her one thing, you gave her another. One man could never fill the void that a woman has, unless he was a rich, super stud, and there are very few such men around. Plus, even if the husband is rich enough and great in bed, does he spend enough time with her, or does he earn a living by supporting their lifestyle? And just to be clear, this applies not only to women. Needs and desires may be different, but there are narcissistic men who can't fill their bucket. Think about some of the types of lords of the universe you've encountered in the business world. They have the same problems, but different needs. What about Kent Thomas, her husband? How can a man afford to support a wife who cheated on him? How does he put up with it? The doctor did his best to hide his surprise at my question. He thought for a moment, then answered, "I'd like you to answer your own question, Samuel. How have you endured this all these years? Waiting for a woman who obviously treated you with such disrespect. You've loved the illusion all this time. At least Mr. Thomas sleeps with her and spends most of his time in the same house with the woman he loves. You were given much less of it, and you came back again and again, all these years." His words touched me deeply. At first I was angry at what he said and the way he said it. I almost turned down the next session next week. But over the next few weeks, we discussed it. His words reinforced everything that my parents, brother, and friends had been trying to make me understand for so long. The situation has cleared up. I can honestly say that after 6 months, I was able to withstand Christie's next challenge, even without the Irishman threatening to cause physical harm. I was almost there, and I was almost free of her. It took another 2 months to place an ad in the column "Men Are Looking for Women" in the newspaper, The Readers. It was the best option for online dating. I met several women this way, but it turned out that I met my future wife through friends. When Fred and Diana Turner realized that I had finally broken up with Christy, they introduced me to their friend. Stacy Roberts was and remains a beautiful woman both inside and out. How I was so lucky that this woman was still single and wanted to marry me in the end is beyond the blessings I deserve. We have 2 beautiful children, and in the 30 years that we have been married, I can honestly say that Christy has not haunted my dreams. I received an invitation to our high school reunion and was about to throw it in the trash when the phone rang. It was Larry Parker, one of my best friends in elementary and high school. "Sam Brown, it's been too long. I've contacted a few guys from the tennis team, and they want you to come to the reunion. Most people are angry that you haven't been to a single reunion after 10 years. After Larry and I talked about life, I agreed to come. It would be great to see these guys." Stacy bought a new dress and heels for the event. She looked stylish, and I loved walking into her room on the arm of such a beautiful woman. We were having a great evening at a table full of tennis team members and their wives when she entered the room. From a distance, it seemed that Christy hadn't aged a bit in the 30 years since I last saw her at that Greek restaurant. She was wearing more jewelry than Elizabeth Taylor at the Oscar ceremony, and she was accompanied by a guy who looked no more than 40 years old. Most of the men and some of the wives at our table looked at her and back at me, I suppose, waiting for a reaction. Stacy caught it all. She followed their gazes. That must be Christy. Now our table mates looked at Stacy, waiting for her reaction. They were disappointed if they expected Stacy to lose her temper. Of course, I see the appeal. A beautiful woman. "Sam, could you get me another glass of wine, please?" Stacy turned around and continued the conversation she had been having before she was interrupted. He and his wife Larry boasted about the amazing talents of their grandchildren. I grinned and brought her some wine. We sat at our table for the next half hour. Other classmates came and went, stopping to say hello. Then I looked up and saw Christy standing next to me. "Hi, Sam." "Hi, Christy. You look good." "Thanks. I don't think you know my wife. This is Stacy." "Stacy, this is Christy. We've met before." Stacy played along. "How sweet. It's very nice to meet you, Christy." I can't believe you two were dating. You look hardly older than our daughter." The comment confused Christy. She was speechless. She expected a sarcastic remark from my wife, but instead received a compliment. "Sam, can I ask you to this dance? That is, if your wife doesn't mind that you're dancing with an ex-girlfriend." Stacy kept her cool in response to Christy's bullying. "Object? Of course not." Stacy winked at me, letting me know that everything was fine. "Christy," I asked, "what about your date?" "He's fine until the bar runs out of alcohol." We danced. "Where's Kent?" "Kent died 10 years ago. He must have left you a good legacy." "You seem to be doing well." "He left me everything." "His widow is doing well." "I travel everywhere and everywhere. Always stylish." Christy looked at her date when she said that. She saw that I was following her gaze. "Well, I had to find someone to replace you when you disappeared. I hope you waited for his 18th birthday, as you waited for mine, Christy." "Oh, Sam, are you jealous?" "I don't think so, Christy. It's time for me to move on and find my own life and a wife." "I'm sorry, Sam. If you had stayed there, all that money would have been yours, and you could have shared it with me." "I have something better than your money, Christy. Look at that woman over there. Stacy gave me life." "That's such banal nonsense, Sam." "Christy, I didn't know it at the time, but the best day of my life was the day when the thug hired by your husband put a gun to my head and told me never to see you again." Christy looked at me as wide-eyed as plastic surgery would allow. "I didn't know that." "It doesn't matter. I married Stacy. I have 2 wonderful children and 3 grandchildren. Here, look." I pulled back, ready to take out my wallet to show a picture of our extended family. Just at that moment, Stacy intervened. "Sorry, it's time to dance with my husband. I love this woman, and